All right, let's dive deep. We've got a stack of rich source material today. Excerpts from R.A. Salvatore's The Witch's Daughter.
Yeah, it's quite a bit to unpack. And our mission today is, well, pretty simple. We're cutting straight to the core.
Okay.
Think of this as your shortcut,
Yeah.
your way to really understand the heart of this story. We'll pull out the key players, get a grip on the main conflict brewing in Istaahl.
Right, the setting.
We'll trace the war's path, and it gets brutal, and pinpoint those really pivotal moments, heroism, magic,
Yeah.
the stuff that really shapes how things turn out.
So, where did the sources drop us in initially? It feels like, well, classic fantasy, but with its own unique flavor. You've got different races living side by side, or maybe not so side by side.
Yeah.
Humans, elves.
And the talents, don't forget the talents.
Right, the Talons. Definitely something different there. And of course, magic users, witches, wizards, and specific places that sound pretty important, like Avalon, this magical forest, and Talistan, which sounds darker.
Definitely has that vibe. And the very first scene we glimpse, it paints this picture of peace, almost deceptively peaceful. It's Rhiannon's birthday party in Avalon. She's Brielle's daughter, the Witch of Avalon.
Okay, so a significant figure right away.
Absolutely. And this party, it's not just cake and candles. It's a real who's who.
Yeah.
You've got powerful mages there, Ardaz, Istaahl, leaders like Beleriand, the Ranger Lord, and even the young King Benedor of Calva.
Wow, quite the guest list.
It is. Arian Silverleaf representing the elves. Key rangers like Belexus and Andovar are there too. Even Billy Shank makes an appearance. It's like everyone important is gathered.
It really does feel like the calm before the storm, doesn't it? But even here, the sources give us hints about Rhiannon herself. She's developing this magic, this power.
Yeah, and she's restless. Wants to see the world, explore beyond Avalon. She's actually planning to travel with Belexus and Andovar.
Which her mother, Brielle, isn't too thrilled about, based on the sources.
Not at all. You get that sense of burgeoning power, this need for independence, bumping up against a mother's worry. It's like the first flicker of the personal stories that are about to get tested. Big time.
Which brings us right to that gathering darkness. The sources are super clear about the catalyst here. It's the return of the Black Warlock, Morgan Thalasi. What's the key thing we need to know about him?
Okay, so Thalasi is fascinating. The sources tell us he's not just him. He actually shares a body with a human, Martin Reinheiser.
Wait, really? So two minds in one body?
Exactly, which creates this constant internal conflict, this really interesting dynamic that the sources touch on. But here's the chilling part. Despite that inner battle, they can achieve these moments of terrifying coordination
Banner.
and immense power.
And we see that power early on.
Oh yeah, brutally. With the destruction of Grok, a Talon who challenged Thalasi, the sources describe Grok just exploding. It's violent, messy, and leaves no doubt about who's in charge. A real statement.
Okay, so Thalasi's back, he's powerful, and he's making examples. What next?
He doesn't waste any time. He pulls together this massive army of Talons, we're talking thousands according to the sources,
Yeah.
and launches this incredibly brutal campaign.
Just sweeps across the land.
Pretty much. The sources detail this rapid advance through the western fields. Communities just overwhelmed. Places like Windy Willow, Duganville, gone. And his sights are set east on the city of Corning,
And Corning leads to?
the Four Bridges, over the river near ending. It's the strategic choke point. Control the bridges, you control movement east.
Got it. And the sources shift focus then to Corning itself, introduce some new faces.
They do. We meet Mary Wendell, an elf, and his half-elven son, Bryan. They're in Corning as these waves of terrified refugees start pouring in, bringing the horrific news about the Talons.
So the reality of the invasion hits Corning hard.
Hits them like a physical blow. There's this urgent council meeting. Mary Wendell's there, Mayor Toulouse, and the Rangers Belexus and Andovar, who we met earlier.
And Mary Wendell, he knows Thalasi.
He does. He encountered him 20 years before at a place called Mountain Gate. So he's the one who has to deliver the news, the grim realization. The Black Warlock is back.
That must have changed the mood in the room.
Instantly. Denial just evaporates. Belexus points out, there are city walls. They were built for small raids, not an army led by Thalasi.
So what's the plan?
It's grim. Evacuate the weak, the non-combatants. But for those who can fight, they make a stand, a desperate one.
And Rhiannon, where is she in all this? She was traveling with Belexus and Andovar.
Right, she's there in Corning right as this decision is being made. And the sources show her making this really significant choice. She decides to stay.
Even though she could leave.
Yeah, She feels this sense of duty, this pull, and she's sensing this power inside her, stirring, even if she doesn't fully get it yet. It's like her intuition is screaming at her to stay.
A key moment for her, stepping onto that path.
Definitely. It's her first real test, choosing to face the storm instead of running from it.
Which leads us straight into the cost of that resistance. The sources really highlight the heroism, but also the sacrifice involved. The defense of Corning. It's not just abstract.
No, not at all. We see these individual acts of incredible bravery. Jolson the Smith, for example.
Ah, yes. Tell us about him.
The sources describe him just wading into the fight, wielding his smith's hammer like a war maul. He's driven by this raw need for revenge. His family was killed in an earlier Talon raid. It's personal, pure vengeance on the battlefield.
Intense. And Belexus. He's leading the cavalry.
He is, leading this desperate charge against just waves of Talons, trying to buy time for the evacuation, trying to hold the line, however briefly.
But then Rhiannon, her first big moment with her magic in battle. How do the sources describe that?
It's incredible and very costly for her. She taps into the earth itself, drawing power directly from the ground to literally split the ground open in front of the main Talon charge. Creates this huge chasm, stops them cold. It's dramatic, a massive intervention.
But there's a cost, you said.
A huge one. Immediately after, the sources say she's left pale, shaking, completely drained. It hammers home this key point about her magic. It's incredibly potent, but it takes a serious physical, maybe even spiritual toll on her.
That seems like a recurring theme we might see. The price of power.
Absolutely. And despite Jolson's fury, Belexus's charge, Rhiannon's magic, Corning still falls. The casualties are just devastating. Merrywindle's gravely wounded, but even then, the sources show him helping coordinate the retreat of the survivors.
A tough scene. What happens to Bryan, Merrywindle's son, and his friends?
They manage to escape Corning, fleeing into the nearby Barrendals Mountains. Seems like they're safe, relatively speaking.
But they don't just hide out.
No. And this is another point about courage. They make this incredibly difficult, incredibly brave choice. They decide to fight back.
How? Just a few kids against the Talon army.
Not the whole army. They operate in small groups, hit-and-run tactics. Using their knowledge of the mountains, bows, daggers, they start harassing scattered Talon patrols. It's partly vengeance for their families, partly just wanting to disrupt the enemy.
That takes guts, but it sounds dangerous.
Extremely. And the sources don't shy away from the cost. They suffer brutal losses. Their small group gets whittled down fight by fight until only Bryan and a girl named Sienna are left.
Wow. So their story is this microcosm of the larger war's toll.
Exactly. It shows the personal cost, even away from the main battles. Meanwhile, word of the invasion is spreading. Andovar, the ranger who survived Corning.
He gets out.
He does. Rides like hell for Pelandara, the capital, to warn King Benedor and Istaahl, the white mage there.
And he mentions Rhiannon.
He does. The sources specifically note him praising her actions at Corning, calls her the witch's daughter, says she foresaw the warlock's return and helped hold the line. That must have registered with Istaahl.
I bet. So King Benedor gets the warning. What does he do?
He understands the gravity immediately, mobilizes the entire Calvan army, their destination, the Four Bridges. It's the logical place to make a stand.
The big defensive line.
Precisely. And defenders start converging there from all over. Survivors from Corning, reinforcements. The sources even mention the defenders from Rivertown using fire really effectively, throwing burning oil flasks at the Talons. Adds another layer of chaos and horror.
So the stage is set at the Four Bridges. Thalasi's massive army arrives.
And the tension is palpable in the sources. Thalasi tries to just smash through with powerful magic, but he runs into resistance he maybe wasn't expecting.
From who?
This is where the big league magic users really step up. Brielle, back in Avalon, and Istaahl and Pelandara, they join forces, magically speaking.
Working together from afar.
Yes. They engage Thalasi in this huge magical duel, projecting their power across the distance to counter his attempts to break the defenses at the bridges. It's a massive struggle.
And the sources describe this in a particular way, right? Something about an age passing.
Exactly. A passing of an age. It gives you this feeling that it's not just spells being thrown around. It's like the very nature of magic is being strained, tested, maybe even diminished by Thalasi's darkness. The cost of magic, again.
That's a heavy concept.
Right.
While this epic magic battle is going on, what about Bryan? You mentioned him earlier.
Right, Bryan. He managed to cross the river before the main battle. Now he's operating behind enemy lines, back in the Barrendals, still fighting his own war.
Doing what?
Rescuing trapped families, settlements overrun by Talons. He sneaks in, gets people out. His actions become legendary in a way. The Talons start calling him the Ghost Fighter. He's this symbol of defiance, even in occupied lands.
A ghost fighter. That's chilling. But then things take an even darker turn. A new threat emerges.
They do. The sources introduce the Wraith of Hollis Mitchell, this terrifying undead thing, apparently summoned or directed by Thalasi.
A wraith, like an actual ghost warrior.
Seems like it. And he's incredibly powerful. He launches an attack directly on Avalon, going after the Rangers there. The sources emphasize he seems almost immune to normal weapons.
Yeah, sounds bad.
It leads to tragedy. Andovar, the ranger who carried the warning,
Oh,
was killed by the Wraith. The description is grim, body twisted, broken. Belexus is there too. He gets injured, but manages to escape at the last second, literally snatched away by Calamus, the winged horse.
Calamus. Okay, so winged horses exist. Good to know. But losing Andovar, that's huge. How does that news land? Especially for Rhiannon.
It hits her hard. Deep grief, but also this increasing struggle with her own power. Andovar's death seems to amplify the weight of responsibility she feels, the burden of her abilities. We see her start this journey west, towards the Barrendals where Bryan is. And there are hints she's using magic, like invisibility, to travel unseen.
She's drawn towards the danger, towards Bryan maybe. Meanwhile, Belexus.
He's taken back to Avalon, badly hurt but alive. Brielle heals him. And the sources give us this really poignant conversation between them. Brielle is terrified for Rhiannon, out there, close to the Warlock, struggling with this volatile power she can't fully control.
A mother's fear. Understandable.
Definitely. And with the threat clearly escalating the Wraith, Andovar's death, a major council is held in Avalon. Brielle, Balerion, the recovered Belexus, Aryan Silverloofed, the Elves, they gather.
What comes out of that council?
First, they pay tribute to Andovar, acknowledge the sacrifice, the danger they're all in. Then they talk strategy. They identify Thalasi and Mitchell as the main threats, but there's also this mention of other ancient ones being stirred up by all this chaos.
Ominous.
Very. But their resolve is clear. They have to confront the Black Warlock directly. No more just defending.
Okay, so a shift in strategy. And speaking of bringing forces together, there's another quest happening. To find a missing wizard.
Yes. Billy Shank. Remember him from the party. He goes on this quest to find Ardaz, the wizard who had wandered off east to explore some ancient ruins before all this started.
How does he even find him?
With help. He's guided by Desdemona, who is apparently a shape-shifting cat that can turn into a raven.
Okay, shape-shifting cats now too. This world has layers.
It certainly does. And they travel on Calamus, the winged horse again. They find Ardaz deep in these ruins. Billy tells him everything, the war, Thalasi, the fall of Corning, and crucially, about Andovar's death.
How does Ardaz take that?
The sources say he's shocked, devastated about Andovar, but it galvanizes him. No hesitation. He immediately mounts Calamus with Billy. Desdemona shifts to raven form, and Ardaz uses his magic to speed their journey back west, back towards the fight.
So another powerful wizard returning just in time for the climax.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final massive assault on the four bridges. The sources paint this picture. The Talon army is immense, bigger than before. And there's this chilling new discipline among them, which the sources attribute to Mitchell's influence.
The Wraith is organizing them.
Seems like it. Makes them even more dangerous. On the defender's side, everyone is bracing for this final desperate fight. Even the young survivors from Corning, Jolson, Sienna, Leonard, they're there, tasked with defending the wounded behind the lines.
Everyone playing a part. The battle begins.
And it's absolute chaos. Fierce fighting right on the bridges. Talons trying to cross the river in boats led by Mitchell's forces. And overarching all of it is the magical duel. Thalasi against Brielle, Istaahl, and now Ardaz, who's arrived.
A 3-on-1 magical battle, but what about Rhiannon? Is she involved?
She's there, near the battle lines. But the sources show Bryan finding her almost catatonic. In this trance-like state, overwhelmed by despair, the sheer scale of it all.
Oh, wow. Can he reach her?
He tries desperately, shaking her, shouting at her. The sources even say he slaps her, trying to break through the despair, urging her to fight, to accept her power. It's this raw, intense moment of connection amidst the carnage.
And on the bridges themselves, the physical fight.
On the northern bridge, it comes to a head. Mitchell the Wraith is there, facing Belexus and Balerion. The sources really emphasize the Wraith's terrifying power. His touch literally melts weapons. His presence radiates this cold that injures the living.
How do they even fight that?
Belexus fights bravely, manages to impale Mitchell, but his sword just melts away. Balerion gets wounded trying to protect Belexus. It looks grim.
Until the magic changes things again.
Yes, the critical moment. Brielle from Avalon unleashes this massive spell. She pulls the water out from under the bridges, emptying the riverbed, creating this huge expanse of thick mud.
A trap for the Talon army crossing.
Exactly. But Ardaz, now on the bridge, sees the immediate danger this creates for everyone still near the banks as the ground turns to muck. He yells a warning, tells everyone to retreat from the banks.
People must be caught down there.
Yes, and the sources highlight these moments of sacrifice right then. Belexus, even injured by Mitchell, stands firm with Ardaz on the bridge, ready for whatever Ardaz plans next. King Bendor leads a charge to cover the retreat from the banks. Sylvia, Arian Silverleaf's daughter, shows incredible bravery, helping elves and humans escape the muddy trap before the next phase.
What is the next phase? What does Ardaz do?
He makes the ultimate sacrifice, in a way. He breaks his own powerful wizard staff. The magic unleashed collapses the entire northern brig.
Collapses it, with them on it.
Yes, sending himself, Belexus, and the Wraith Mitchell plunging down into the deep mud below.
Incredible. But that's not all, is it? The river.
Simultaneously, Brielle and Istaahl release the water they'd been holding back upstream. A massive flood, a wall of water, surges down the now empty riverbed.
Wiping out the Talons in the mud.
Wipes out a huge portion of the Talon army caught there. A devastating blow. But the sources are clear. It's tragic. The flood also sweeps away many of the human and elven defenders who couldn't get clear of the banks in time.
So a victory, but a brutal one.
Immensely costly. The immediate aftermath. Rhiannon just collapses, utterly spent from the strain, the emotion. Thalasi's army is broken, the bridges are gone. He's forced to retreat.
So the battle is won, but the cost
is staggering. Lives lost on both sides, the bridges destroyed, the land itself scarred by magic and flood. It's a victory, undeniably, but a somber one.
So as we pull back from this deep dive into that climax, where do the sources leave the key players? Who's left standing?
Well, Belexus and Ardaz are actually rescued from the mud under the bridge. So they survive, incredibly. Rhiannon is alive, but recovering. Bryan is still out there, the ghost fighter, behind enemy lines. Thalasi's retreating, his army shattered for now.
And Mitchell, the wraith who fell with the bridge.
Surprisingly, the sources show him emerging from the floodwaters, too. Still active, still a threat.
Wow. Okay, so the immediate aftermath. What do the winners do? Pursue Thalasi?
Actually, no. The sources show the surviving elf and ranger forces heading back to Avalon first. The reasoning. To help Brielle heal her forest.
The forest was damaged, too.
Yeah, the conflict, the strain of the magic. It took a toll on her domain, her woods. It's this powerful symbol, showing the war's impact isn't just on battlefields and cities, but on the natural world, the sources of magic, too.
Yeah.
Their first priority is healing Avalon.
That makes sense. It really drives home some of the themes you mentioned earlier.
Definitely. The cost of war, obviously.
Yeah.
But also the nature of power, how it demands sacrifice, how it can be a burden, and just how interconnected everything is in this world, Istaahl. Damage here causes ripples there.
And that idea of a passing of an age that Istaahl and Brielle felt.
It feels very real now. Like the world has fundamentally changed because of this conflict. It won't just go back to how it was.
It's a powerful place to wrap up our analysis of these sources. The battle for the bridges is over, dramatically so, but it really doesn't feel like the end of the story.
Not at all. The sources leave us with some major players still on the board. Thalasi is out there, regrouping perhaps. Mitchell the Wraith is still a threat. Ardaz is back. But the main defenders, the elves and rangers, are focused on healing Avalon.
So it leaves you wondering, with the landscape literally altered, the bridges gone, key figures surviving on both sides but maybe weakened or changed, what comes next?
Exactly. What new threats or maybe even unexpected alliances might rise from the mud and wreckage of the four bridges?
Yeah.
The war for Istaahl. These sources strongly suggest it's far from finished.